Hey everybody, I'm back and welcome to The Point. Hope you're all doing well. Merry Christmas. Hope you had a great Boxing Day. I have been out of the office for over a week now. I was in the Sunshine State, the great state of Florida, and I plan on doing shows while I was down there. Internet in the apartment that we were in, no good. Could not even get it up. Couldn't happen, could not stream. So I had to wait till I got home. Had so many thoughts, have so much to get into, but we're going to get to it today. It's December 27th. Happy to be joining all of you. I will say, when you are in a warm place, and Florida wasn't exactly warm, and I'll get to that in a second, but it was warmer than it is currently here in Rexton, NB. But when you are in a warm climate and you get off a plane and you walk outside and you go to a cold climate, I don't know if there's anything that's worse. Honestly, I really don't. Is there anything worse in life than that? I'm sure. I'm being dramatic, of course, but there's nothing like heat and living in it and just being surrounded by heat and warmth. In my opinion, it's top notch. It's as good as it gets. But I digress. We move on. Happy to be home. Happy to be home because the World Junior Hockey Championships kicked off yesterday. I'm going to be attending the game this morning between Slovakia and Finland. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be fun. Slovakia and Finland at noon. That's the first game on the slate in Moncton today. But before we get to that, we went to Florida, spent Christmas for the first time away from home in my life, 24 years. It was cool. I absolutely would do it again. It's a very different experience. Florida in the U.S., I found it's very. It's just another day. It's not a big event. My dad bought a Starbucks coffee Christmas Day going to the Dolphins game. There were 51 people he counted in the Starbucks. And I think they had 7 people working. That is, foreign here. That's just not something you'd see in Canada. But it's just a different experience, just a different way that they go about it. Thanksgiving is obviously more of a holiday down there than Christmas is. So that was one interesting thing. The second, and obviously the most important of the trip for me personally, other than spending time with my family, of course, was going to the football game. It was the first NFL game that I saw live. It was something that I had on my 2022 bucket list. I'm not the type of person that has a dream board or puts up goals, or I don't really believe in New Year's resolutions. I think if you want change, you have change. If you don't, you don't. But I wanted to get to an NFL game, and I was convinced that I was not going to get to one in 2022. I'd have to wait. But things worked out. We went. And honestly, it was one of the coolest days of my life. I was not excited going because I don't like the word excited. It's just, to me, there's a negative connotation to excited. I don't, for whatever reason, I don't like to get excited in life, because oftentimes you get excited and then your excitement is brought down. I think if you stay even keel, or if you stay like me and you're more negative, monotone, it's less likely you're going to be upset. So that might be my own idiosyncrasy. But I honestly can say, when I got to the stadium and I saw them coming up to warm up, I got goosebumps. We were there about 90 minutes before the game, and that 90 minutes flew by. I saw people kick field goals. I saw Tyreek Hill run on the field. Aaron Rodgers in the flesh. So many just cool events. Just going to a sporting event outside is cool. You had the fresh air. It was cathartic. It was really cool. It was awesome. I recommend it to anybody. You might not even like football. Go watch a game live. It's it's amazing. I loved every second of it. I would do it again tomorrow if I could. It was, oddly enough, we were in Florida, and it was probably 6 to 8 degrees Celsius, and everybody around me is freezing because they, aren't me, and I don't get cold, and that's something that I love that I have in my genes, is that it takes a lot for me to get cold. I had shorts on. There's people dressed in parkas, dressed in, big coats, Canada Goose, if you will. My father's freezing because I love the guy, but he's soft as butter. And, my mother and my sister are struggling through it. But I love that it was cold. That's NFL weather. You go to Florida for the nice day. Well, guess what? You can't predict weather. And it was cold. It wasn't the warmest day, but I'm glad it was cold and not warm, because yes, I wasn't in Lambeau, which I hope to get to one day. It wasn't the Pittsburgh Steelers Christmas Eve game that looked absolutely freezing. The players look in pure misery playing that game. But there's something about being cold with so many other people just in a stadium. It was electric. Just awesome stuff. I can't. It was truly one of my favorite Christmases, because I got to go to one of my favorite places, which is Florida, and I also got to watch the sport that I love most, and that's the NFL. 24 years, I had never been to a game, and it takes a lot for me to kind of really sink in now. There's so many different options. You watch so many games. I've been fortunate to get to live sporting events. You watch really cool movies. You forget about really important events of your life. This was one of them for me. This is truly something that I will appreciate until I'm put in the ground, because it was my first game. Hopefully it's not my last game. But as I said, if you can get to an NFL game, do it. You don't have to be a fan. There's lots to do. There's lots to go buy merchandise. You could stand in a line for a French fry for 45 minutes, which I refuse to do. To be honest, if you know me, this is not going to shock anybody. I went there. I bought nothing. Did not buy a trophy. Did not buy a souvenir. Didn't buy a fry. Barely used the bathroom. And I didn't buy a thing. Nothing. But I was there. And I can tell you guys I was there when here on the podcast. I don't need to prove it to anybody or keep a souvenir that say you went that you'll never use again. So you have your memories till we all go senile and you forget it in your brain. But we'll get to football more later, but I just wanted to touch on that off the top because it was really, really, really enjoyable experience. And, thank you to my parents and my sister for coming, going along with me. It wasn't my father's first NFL game, but it was for my mother, my sister, and myself. So a pretty cool experience to go to a NFL game on Christmas Day. But following Christmas Day, we have Boxing Day. And yesterday, we were flying home, catching some birds, and we're at the Montreal airport. I see that Finland's winning 1-0 in the second period. I get home, rewatch the game, and the World Junior Hockey Championship is on in full swing. And there's already an upset with Switzerland beating Finland. And that carried throughout the day, and it carried some weight because every game yesterday, minus the Austrian beatdown by the hands of Sweden, there was parts of games where you felt maybe the lesser team might win. Maybe the team that is not as highly touted can pull off an upset. Latvia gave the U.S. everything that they could handle yesterday. Swiss upset the Finns in overtime. And of course, the headliner, the main course, if you will, saw the Czech Republic beating Team Canada last night 5-2 in a game that really was not that close. And let's get into the game. I want to talk about certain players. I'm going to talk about the team itself and just major headlines from day one at the World Junior Hockey Championship and just players to watch. I wanted to touch on this last week, but we'll get to all of it here. So, my first announcement or first thought here. Canada loses the first game. Everybody just... I know my audience here is rooting for Canada because you're Canadians. If you're not rooting for Canada, maybe you're just an observer like me. No problem there. But if you're rooting for anybody else and you're from Canada and you're a fan of teams, then you might have a problem here. But they lost the first game of the tournament. I'd rather lose the first game of the tournament than losing the quarterfinal. It's just an early observation. If you're calling 2018, Canada went through the round robin, riding high, winning every game, playing extremely well. They get to play Finland in the quarterfinal. Finland defeats them in the quarterfinal in overtime, and they're done. They didn't face any speed bumps. They didn't play any tough opponents. Canada got a tough game from day one. To me, that is an advantage, not a disadvantage. This is something you learn from. This is also a benefit for the Team Czech Republic. On the drive home yesterday, I told my parents I thought the Czech Republic would give them a tough go last night because I expect the Czech Republic to win a medal at this tournament. I will reveal how I see this finishing later on in the podcast. I think the Czech Republic will win a medal. The Czech Republic are built from the defense out. Sladoslav Svozil, David Jiricek, who was a first-round pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets, David Spacek, Saleh on the back end. This team is full of very, very, very competent defensemen. And when you have a bunch of really good defense, it can be tough to generate offense. It can be tough to generate a good forecheck because that's the way they play the game. Canada will not see a better defense score, top to bottom, in this tournament. They won't. Finland lost 4 guys from the team that they had in the summer. Important guys like Viro, like Hinola, like Topi Niemela. Those guys are not at this tournament. They're bringing in 18-year-olds. They might be great next year. They won't be as good as the team they had there. The U.S., Jack Pert's a very good player. Luke Hughes is an absolute stud. Top to bottom, the Czech Republic will have the best defense score minus Canada in this tournament. And Canada doesn't play against themselves. They will not play against a better defense score. And to be honest, goaltending in this tournament is so unpredictable, I'm not sure they face a better goalie. Trey Augustine for the U.S. has never played at this tournament. He's 19. He's undrafted. So is Caden Maburko, their other goaltender in this tournament. Suchanik's played in the CHL. He's played in the WHL for years at a high level. He played phenomenal last night, and he played extremely well at the tournament in the summer as well. Canada had a lot of holes last night. Certainly. Start with this. They're 2 highly touted players, Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli, have their positives and their negatives. And every elite player, 9 out of 10, it's rare that your elite player that's the 5-tool guy that is a great pick is Sidney Crosby, where he will back check, he will be in the right position, he'll get his stick on a puck at a young age. Crosby was doing it in Rimouski. Jonathan Toews was doing it when he came out of Shattuck St. Mary's, and then he started playing college hockey. And I'm not saying Toews is better than Crosby, but when Toews was in his prime, he was damn close. It's rare that you see these guys come out and they're that good. I look at last night, Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli. In the first 10 minutes, I thought both forwards were fantastic. And some of their best attributes is they're not afraid. They're not afraid of the moment. They're not afraid to take a chance. Fantilli scooting up the boards, his big frame, blowing past defensemen, not afraid to make a mistake on a long pass. He's got poise for the game. And to me, the best players are guys that are just not afraid to make a mistake, because you either think you can overcome it or that's just going to work, which I like, because if you're thinking, the worst thing you can do as an athlete, or just I think when you're playing sports, is think too much. That is a detriment, and that sounds counterproductive. I realize that. But when you're playing, don't think, act. That's how you play sports. You don't. When you have the puck, you're not thinking, okay, this is going to happen. You see somebody open up on the other side, you pass them the puck. It's an instant reaction. You're playing sports. You see something. Okay, I got to do this. It's all in one motion, right? So it's about acting or reacting to the situation, not thinking. Thinking is when you go, oh, maybe if I go here, then this will happen. Then this will happen in the power play, and we go around. That is overthinking. That is too complicated. Simplify the game. The game shouldn't be that complicated. It's a game. It's supposed to be fun. So that's their best features for Adam Fantilli and Connor Bedard, is they're not afraid to make mistakes, and they're not afraid to play the game. Great. Their worst, puck management. And unfortunately for them, they're young guys. They're 17 years old. They both had their moments last night where they were really bad. David Spacek scored the opening goal for the Czech Republic. Adam Fantilli, well documented by Mike Johnson on the broadcast, is in the middle of the ice. He's looking around. He's following the puck, not following his man. Terrible defensive coverage. Fosil with a picture-perfect pass right on the tape of Spacek. It's in the back of the net. 1-1. Later on in the period, Bedard turns the puck over. They go in. They get a close opportunity. They score another goal. So 2 plays that directly led to goals were because of Connor Bedard and because of Adam Fantilli. That is going to happen. That is going to happen to these 2 guys. But what I will say for Bedard, I think he should have been player of the game last night, for me personally. Shane Wright won it. He scored a goal. Okay, I don't think he had a great impact on the game, quite frankly. I thought Bedard was head and shoulders Canada's best forward. He was the most dynamic. He got the best opportunities. And unless you want to give it to a defenseman, because I don't think any particular Canada defenseman played awful last night. Del Mastro had his problems. I'm going to get to a player that I really like on the back end that should play more as the tournament progresses. But Bedard was done. It was all around the puck. He was the focus on the power play. I thought he had a good night overall. And, Canada's top line of Wright and Bedard and Brennan Othmann were at times their only line that was producing anything. You can get shots, but are you getting into those crucial areas? Are you getting into key parts of the ice? I didn't see that from the other lines enough. Canada had some tough calls last night. They get, the challenge review, which of course is my favorite part of the game. Takes 10 minutes. Look at every angle, no goal, whatever. Okay, it's offside. I don't know why you need that review. Call it offside or don't. I think it should have been a goal if you don't call it on the ice. I'm never going to win that argument because nerds will win and technology wins every time, I guess, even though they get it wrong more than they get it right. So I'm not concerned about Bedard at all. I thought he had a decent game. What I will say about the rest of the team, the second line of Logan Stankoven, Adam Fantilli, and Dylan Guenther needs to be broken up. In their pre-tournament games, they did not generate anything. And last night, they were an invisible line. Logan Stankoven, who I really like, didn't have any impact on the game. And penalties have something to do with that. You lose your cohesion. You lose where you are. But he was a non-factor. He needs to be a key factor. And here's my thought on this line. Joshua Waugh played really well in the summer. He's a guy that adds something to a line. He can check. He gets involved. And he was around he finds a way to get to the puck. And that's something that's really positive to have on a team. I would insert him on the second line with Stankoven, and I would keep Fantelli as well. I think Gunther should drop to the third line. Get Joshua Waugh up there. He can play. Just they need a shift. And you want to try out different combinations because you have Germany coming up and you have Austria. The two easiest teams you'll have in your schedule before you play Sweden on New Year's Eve. I just think that second line should be better. Stankoven, you could have argued, should have won player of the tournament in the summer. Fantelli's going to be a high pick in the draft. And Dylan Gunther's been playing in the National Hockey League this year. So there needs to be something that comes of that. And I didn't see enough last night to justify it. Canada on the power play. Too fancy. Too fancy is my thought. It's dynamic. But to me, it's overpassing. You're playing these teams. You're playing these countries where they're just backing up. They're gonna, their defense are playing close to the goaltender. Shoot the puck to create opportunities. You look at the guys on these teams that can just wire it. Fantelli, Bedard, Stankoven, Gunther's got a great shot. On the back end, Brandt Clark, Tyson Hines. Zellweger doesn't have a huge clapper, but you saw in the first goal, he's got a knack for getting pucks to the net. Shoot pucks on the net because you're going to create rebounds. You win games playing hockey because of just being gritty and finding ways to score. Yes, the highlight reel Michigan goal is great for SportsCenter. It's great for clicks. It's like the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, they're always going to give a headline. They're always going to get people interested in the moment. But is there substance there? Is the article worth anything, or is it just an article so that people will click on it? If you really want to win, you win in the dirty areas. That's where it's done. You get pucks to the net. On the second Czechia goal, they get a shot from the point. There's a screen. Goodrow doesn't pick it up. It beats him. The fifth and final goal that he allowed, it's a bad goal, but you're charging to the net. You get a puck on net, it finds its way through. Czechia is more, they're going to get to that area because they know they're playing a team that's more talented than them. And this Czechia team up front is not talented like the teams of Martin Riwe or Jan Mysak. They got 3 goals out of the 5 by defensemen last night. Slatoslav Sposal, Spacek gets one early. I just don't see enough. Just shoot for Canada on the power play. Shoot the puck. Zellweger's at the top. Do the screen pass again. Or if you have Brandt Clark out there, Bedard on the wing, shoot the puck on net looking for a rebound. Because you have guys that can just whack it in. Brendan Othman is near the net on the power play. Don't set up a play where he has to deflect the puck. It's too complicated. Keep it simple, stupid. KASS, Michael Scott. Keep it simple, stupid. You are so talented that you want to make it more difficult than it actually is. And yes, the power play was incredibly dangerous last night. Yes, but they had 1 power play goal. They had 1 power play goal, and it was the first goal of the game, so you forget about it. They had power plays. And Canada fans last night might protest and say, well, we lost because of the referees. No, you didn't. You lost because Czechia was the better team. You lost because Czechia's goaltender was better. You lost because Czechia was better at containing the puck and being in better positions. And for Canada, The Zach Dean ejection? Of course I don't like it. I don't think that was a 5-minute major play. I don't think it was a check to the head. But they called it. When you're playing international hockey, the assumption is if it's questionable, if it's even close to being on the line, they're going to go more aggressive than not. So as a player, you need to be aware of that going in. And Zach Dean took his chances, and the referees booted him out from the game. I wouldn't have done it. It's a stupid call. I 100% understand it. But this is how they ref international hockey. Expecting something different, again, is stupid. They referee the games the same way every time. You watch international hockey, they're going to call things that they wouldn't call in the NHL. Expecting an NHL officiating style is not the way it's going to be. They ref it different. There's different rules or different protocols. So for Canada, stay out of the box. Stay out of the box because Czechia scored 2 power play goals last night on that 5-minute major. And that really sealed the game because it sucked all the energy out of the building. It was 3-2, then they took the 5-minute. And before you know it, it's 5-2, and there's a period and a half left, and Canada got shots, but nothing that was that threatening. And Sukanik was fantastic for the Czechs. For Canada, goaltending is absolutely wide open. Milic will start on Wednesday, I imagine, against Germany. They play Wednesday and Thursday. Gaudreau was having a great start because Czechia had an early power play where they had some good opportunities, and he made some big stops for Canada. And I thought, well, okay, this is his moment. He's really coming out. But after that, the 3rd to 5th goal all could have been saved. All could have been stopped. And that's where you look at. And the 5th one was brutal. Right decision by head coach Dennis Williams to pull him. You needed a spark. You needed something different in that locker room. So he had a tough night, and you're going to have to overcome it for him because you have people looking at you now. You are now at the mercy of the goaltender that came in. Your replacement did not allow a goal. I imagine he starts Wednesday night. And I think there's a next to 0% chance, unless Thomas is absolutely awful in Wednesday night's game, that we see Gaudreau in for the New Year's Eve game. Because you just played a top-level team, and you didn't come out to play. So I believe you go to a different netminder in that spot to see if he can grab the net. I said off the top, I expect the Czech Republic to win a medal. Up front, they do not have the firepower of recent great teams. Martin Riwe was a really good player at the tournament. Jan Mysak up front. It's not Jaromir Jagr, Patrick Elias type players. Kulich is a good player. Repik, Brabanek, who plays for the Charlottetown Islanders, is a good player up front. But this team will be driven by their defense core. David Jiricek is a really interesting player. I remember that draft. I guess it was last year's draft. And I expected him to be picked before Simon Nemec. And Simon Nemec was drafted 2nd overall by the New Jersey Devils. If you recall, Yakov Slavkovsky went 1st to Montreal, shocking everybody, keeping Shane Wright on the draft floor. Nemec went 2. Logan Cooley, who's playing for the Americans, went 3. And David Jiricek went 6th in the draft, Shane Wright going 4. So a lot of these players are in this tournament. I thought Jiricek should go higher than Nemec because I liked Jiricek's physicality. I liked his shot, which he's got a cannon. And, he's had a fantastic season for Cleveland, the Cleveland Monsters in the American Hockey League. He's over a point per game in the AHL as a 19-year-old defenseman, which is really impressive. He almost didn't play last night because his gear didn't arrive until about 2 hours before the game because of all the travel issues in the last 72 hours across North America. And I mean, I'm intrigued to watch him throughout the tournament. He can be a lazy player for me. He can often pinch and he doesn't fight that hard to come back at times. He goes into the corner and sometimes he doesn't want to take physicality. So he definitely has some problems in his game. He has some holes. But I love him on the power play. I think he's a really smart player. To me, he can find ways to make the play easier. He will do it, and that's a knack, just finding a way to make a play easier. Between Jurček and Sladislas Fossil, the captain of Team Czech Republic, who I think was phenomenal. If the goaltender wasn't so great, he would have won MVP of the game last night because he was phenomenal. With those guys and Spacek too, he plays really, really confident. This back end is feared, and Jurček is one of my players to watch of the tournament. I have that here. I made that the other day because I wanted to talk about players that I really players to watch. In the tournament, you got. I put Jurček down there. I got Logan Cooley for the Americans. Also got Luke Hughes for the Americans, who scored a nice goal yesterday. U.S. didn't play great yesterday, and they're an interesting bunch because I think they're really skilled. Jimmy Snuggard is a really fun player. He's got a lot. Chaz Luchas, a Winnipeg draft pick, another guy that's really crafty. I like the way he plays the game. To me, Luke Hughes, this should be a tournament where we look back and go, this was Luke Hughes' tournament. This should be a Thomas Chabot type tournament for him where his play is like, well, he could win tournament MVP to me. That's how good he should be. I thought he was okay yesterday. But between him, Jurček, I'm looking forward to watching Simon Nemec play this afternoon. He's obviously from Slovakia, like Slavkovsky. So Simon Nemec will be playing this afternoon. He's another guy, just went second overall in the draft, playing in the American Hockey League for the New Jersey Devils. There's a lot of highly touted prospects, second overall, sixth overall, fourth overall, playing in this tournament. And then there's Zellweger, who was drafted later, but looks as good as anybody. The way he skates, the way he moves, and the confidence he has his ability on his skates to make plays quickly is really impressive as well. But I have the tournament going as follows. Here's how I have it going. In the winning bronze, I have the Czech Republic. The Czechs lost the bronze medal game this summer to Sweden. It was a game I think they really regret. They should have won that game. They were the better team than Sweden. Sweden was just kind of going through the motions the whole tournament. They didn't have a whole lot of fire, but Sweden ended up winning bronze. Sweden this time, Simon Edmondson, who didn't have a great tournament in the summer, is not back. He decided to stay and continue to play for Grand Rapids. Isaac Rosen is an interesting player for them. Fabian Lysell, who's a first-round pick of the Boston Bruins, is a point-per-game player for the Providence Bruins in the American Hockey League. Great shot, great passing ability, just a really smart hockey player. Sweden does have some nice players up front. But to me, I have the Czechs edging out Sweden for a medal this holiday season because of the goaltending, the back end. I just think Czechs will find a way to win games. They played Canada last night. They don't have to play prevent defense. They have enough firepower to throw at you. They haven't won a medal in a very long time at this tournament. 18 years, I believe, they have not won a medal. I think that streak ends. I have the Czech Republic winning bronze. Silver, I have Team Finland. Finland won silver this past summer. And just to recall, they lost Viro. They lost Hinola. They lost Topi Niemela. Aturati. I believe they lost 12 players from this summer. So they have so many 18-year-olds on this team. They lost their goaltender. So they have a new coach at this tournament. They're bringing in a new regime. So there's going to be growing pains. They lose yesterday. One good thing I will say is I thought Brad Lambert, who was injured in the tournament this summer, who was so highly touted, he's played in so many World Juniors, and it seems to just kind of go down more and more. I thought he moved really well yesterday. I thought he saw the ice well. I thought he was at least engaged, and they played him, which was a positive sign. The coach this summer did not play him. Vesanainen, what a smart player for the Finns. His biggest skill, and this is a skill, sometimes it's luck, but if you see it game after game, he has such an ability to be around the puck. You need to be around the puck. That means you have to fight your way to get there. He finds a way to have the puck on his stick. He's got one of the best releases in this tournament. Finland will have to work through the defense core, but up front, they have some players that can score goals. Kapanen, Lambert, Vesanainen. Their goaltending is solid. They lose the opener to Switzerland. And they got outplayed badly. They were lucky to get a point against Switzerland. Really, they're an impressive bunch, and I'll talk about them in a second. But I think Finland will find a way to overcome that. They'll lose this first game just like Canada did. They play Slovakia today. You rebound. They got to hope that they can beat the U.S. on New Year's Eve. But it's a speed bump. It doesn't define your tournament. They're young, but the Finns just, in the biggest moments, when it comes to that quarterfinal, when it comes to the medal round, they win hockey games, period. And gold, I have Canada. Canada lost last night, but they're so fast. They're so skilled. And a lot of last night was just mental error. And when you are the more skilled team, you can make up for that. But I also believe Connor Bedard is not a stupid hockey player. Adam Fantilli is not a stupid hockey player. They're going to go 1-2 in the draft this year. Their goaltending can be worked out. Zellweger will have more of an impact on the game. They need to find a second line. But you have the rest of the tournament to figure that out. They have more talent on their team than any other team. That does not mean you'll win. But to me, this team is not just full of skill guys. I saw that on Twitter last night. It's not. You got Othman. You got guys that can play different spots. Dylan Guenther is not just a skilled forward. He can get into those areas and play a more physical game. Canada will find their game as the tournament goes on. You lose the first one, you battle, and you find a way to get back into the swing of things. So I think Canada will beat Finland in the gold medal game like they did this summer. And I think the Czechs, they might beat the U.S. in the bronze medal game. The U.S. were beat by the Czech Republic in the quarterfinal this summer. So that could be an interesting rematch where these two teams really don't have great feelings for each other. There's no Russia, so it feels like the tournament's diluted a bit. Austria is obviously not a strong team. Latvia can give you a good go. But overall, I think an interesting team to watch is Switzerland. I've seen Switzerland play twice now because I watched their pre-tournament game against Sweden where they won in overtime, and I watched their game yesterday where they beat Finland in overtime. They start out playing, a structure where they're backing up. They're playing 5 guys deep. They're eliminating the neutral zone. They're eliminating opportunities, and they did that to perfection yesterday against the Finns. But I also saw the game where they changed their game plan and they started to go on the attack because they realized that they could. This team doesn't have tons of skilled players. They're a smaller country. It's not going to. Thibault plays for the Moncton Wildcats. Antilio Biasca, who's the captain for Switzerland, who plays for the Halifax Mooseheads. They have certain guys that are going to have to be great. And I also think Pash, their goaltender, is above average in this tournament. But to me, Switzerland will be a thorn in somebody's side. And looking at the two sides, I'll be watching them a few times, watching them play the U.S. on Thursday night. In that group, you have Finland, who they've already beaten. You have the Americans. And, could they, if you can beat Slovakia, beat Latvia, that's 8 points for Switzerland. If I'm just projecting that they lose to the Americans. That's 8 points. Does that get you enough? If the Finns lose, or if the Americans come up with a loss, Switzerland could potentially be second in a group. And maybe they lose a game. Maybe there is an upset game where they lose. But to me, they play a structure. The coach buys into it. And they're the type of team where you go into a quarterfinal, and if you're a heavy favorite, that's a scary game because they know who they are. They know they're not as talented as 95% of this tournament. They're more talented than Latvia. They're more talented than Austria. After that, that's a wrap. But they know who they are. If they can get into a position, we're just looking at it. Let's say they play Sweden in a quarterfinal game. If they could possibly get a 2-spot, Sweden's number 3 on the other side. That's a tricky game because Switzerland's already beat them in the pre-tournament. Sweden, to me, just doesn't get up for these games anymore. And the Swiss, I like their goaltending. I like their structure. And they will not back away from it. They know it's a winning formula. So if a coach is preaching it and you've already seen it work, that's when buy-in happens. They're my frisky team of the tournament where they could potentially sneak their way into a semifinal that you never saw coming. Maybe they're a team that could get there because they just find a way. They just find a way somehow. But I was impressed by their game yesterday. They play their system. They play it hard. And they know that certain guys have to capitalize in big moments. And to them now, what they need to do is not take their foot off the gas. You just had a massive upset against Finland. Nobody expected you to win that game. I don't think the coaching staff expected them to win that game, but they did. You still have games against Latvia and against Latvia, and you still got to play the U.S. and you got to play Slovakia. Slovakia is I'm interested to see how they look. I thought they'd be dangerous in last Christmas. They lost so many guys that did not come back. Slavkovsky's not playing. So you're missing important guys that would have been really instrumental to a team that I felt could have been maybe the Swiss of this year. You get by Slovakia, you get by Latvia, you take care of that business, then you're in position to do something that you've never done. Win a medal at this tournament. Be in a position to play after New Year's if you're Switzerland. Be put in a quarterfinal game where you at least have home ice, you have last change, and you have some positives on your side. It's a quick, but it's also a long tournament because it's one game. You want to overreact to everything. I'm going to try not to do that. Today, on the slate of games at the World Juniors, Slovakia and Finland. Finland loses their first. They got Slovakia has their tournament opener today. Sweden and Germany play at 2:30 in Halifax. Sweden won 11-0 over Austria yesterday. Biggest drubbing in the tournament so far. Germany opens. Latvia will play Switzerland at 5 o'clock in Moncton. Both teams played yesterday, so both teams coming off a back-to-back. So, interesting. Again, Switzerland, don't take your foot off the gas. Be ready for that game. And the nightcap tonight is Czechia and Austria. I'm going to the game at noon. Every day in the show, we will recap things. Hasn't been confirmed yet, but I believe tomorrow, Seamus Fillmore, my compadre, will be joining me in studio for a podcast, which is always fun because we are attending the Slovakia-US game tomorrow night at the Avenir Center. So we'll be doing that together. So I believe we're going to do a podcast in studio prior to us departing for that game. So I want to get his thoughts and everything. But tomorrow on the podcast, I will be here 100%, and I will talk about today's games and what it looked like to see Simon Nemec and a lot of other players on both sides this afternoon at the Avenir Center. To football. Where do I start with the NFL? I could just start with how much bad football there is this year. There are so many bad teams, and there are going to be teams that make the playoffs that are not good. For instance, I watched the Chargers-Colts game last night because why not? And the Chargers won the game 20-3, and they clinch a playoff spot for the first time since Justin Herbert's entered the league. It's his third year in the league. He will be going to the playoffs for the first time. They'll be a wildcard team, as Kansas City's already locked up the AFC West division title. Who saw that coming? But I look at the Chargers team. They won the game by 17. The spread was 4.5 or 3.5 something. I didn't bet it because I don't bet favorites, and it was a lock that the Chargers are going to win that game. But the Chargers should have won last night by 30 points. They should have won by over 30 points. The Indianapolis Colts are a sad sack team. Nick Foles did not throw for 100 yards last night, and he had 3 interceptions. The Colts there are just horrendous teams, but then there are playoff teams that are just stupid, in my opinion, and just make careless mistakes. And the Chargers are one of those teams. They are going into the playoffs. Justin Herbert's a great quarterback, but their offensive line cannot block anybody. Their defense is too aggressive. They dropped 2-3 more interceptions last night. The receivers don't know how to get to. You see where the line of gain is. Get there. No, stop before you don't get first downs. The Chargers could go on a deep run in the playoffs because Justin Herbert's that good, and Mike Williams is healthy, and Keenan Allen's healthy. You got a team full of guys. But this isn't a great run blocking team. I don't think they're particularly smart, and I don't think Brandon Staley is a great situational head coach, quite frankly. But you have a team that's making the playoffs that I don't think is very good, and then you have just a horrendous pile of crap other teams, like Indianapolis. You are running the ball for 5 yards a carry last night. Zach Moss is running for 5 yards a carry. Okay. Well, this is just football 101, but you have 4 tries really, but you punt the ball most times on fourth down to get 10 yards. So if you're running 5 yards a carry on first down, that means you have third down with only 5 yards to go. And it's hard math. Again, I know you guys know football, but go through this little exercise with me. So why don't we on first down? Oh yeah, let's throw. Okay. They threw the ball more than they ran the ball last night, and the game was close. It was 10-3 at the half. Nick Foles, who is more brittle than Tom Brady moving around out there, is beyond cooked. He played horrible. He should have threw 6 interceptions last night. He was that bad. You don't run the football even though it's working. You let Nick Foles, who won a Super Bowl 20 years ago, throw passes. Sounds like a recipe to success. No. Just dumb situational football. Dumb. It's a way to lose, not a way to win. And that's what the Colts did. So you get through that game. Chargers clinch a playoff spot. They're 9-6 with the Dolphins' loss. And the Ravens, who are in an interesting spot because who knows when Lamar Jackson's returning. I think the Chargers could potentially, I think they'll finish in that 5th spot because they finish against the Rams. And they finish again, and then they play the Broncos in the last week of the season. I don't think they lose either of those games, so I think they finish 11-6. Maybe the Rams is more difficult now, but we'll see. Where do I go next here? Oh, bad teams. So yeah, a bad team beats and a team that will likely make the playoffs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I stayed up for that entire game Sunday night with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Arizona Cardinals. Could have tried to get some sleep before the flight, but no, I want to stay up and watch this game. It was truly dreadful. It went to overtime, just at worse to wear. Trace McSorley, third-string quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, against Tom Brady, the GOAT, the King of Kings, and the Buccaneers. I don't think I've seen Tom Brady play a worse game. And I give him no credit for tying the game late and winning against those Cardinals. None. Zero. You do not deserve a pom-pom. You do not deserve a pat in the back for beating a sad sack piece of shit team. The Cardinals are dreadful. Offensively, they could do nothing. J.J. Watt has had a great couple weeks. But Budda Baker separated his shoulder midway through the game, played through it because he's Budda Baker. But this team isn't lightning. Chandler Jones is in Vegas. They don't have the pass rush that they used to have. Hassan Reddick's in Philadelphia. This Cardinals defense isn't great. Their corner, Patrick Peterson's in Minnesota. And Tom Brady put up 19 points on this team. He missed so many throws. He couldn't pick up fourth downs. He had simple passes in the flat that he was underthrowing or overthrowing the entire night. It was truly one of the worst performances of his career. And it was the absolute definition of a bad team beating a horrible team. Kyler Murray plays in that game, Arizona wins it, bar none, because he could not have played worse than Tom Brady. Tampa's 7-8 somehow. Saints threw them a game in there. Atlanta was gifted a loss by the NFL for roughing the Brady earlier in the year. Tom Brady and the Bucs have been gifted wins this year. Their schedule hasn't hurt either, that they're playing crap teams. But he's going to be 46. I think he wants to play next season. I don't think he wants to go out like this. I'm sure he thinks if he was on the Miami Dolphins, they'd be winning a Super Bowl right now. He's on Tampa on an under 500 team, and he may miss the playoffs. He may miss the playoffs. Him and Mike Evans have no connection anymore. I don't know what happened there. The last couple weeks, there's nothing. They don't have any feel for one another. They take penalties. He makes stupid decisions. They call timeouts that are not seeming to make any sense. And now they sit at a game this coming Sunday where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to defeat the Carolina Panthers to make the playoffs. The Carolina Panthers who fired a head coach, the Carolina Panthers who cut a quarterback, Baker Mayfield is now a Los Angeles Ram, who lost J.C. Horn to the season, who then signed Josh Norman off no practice squad because he wasn't playing anywhere, to their active roster yesterday. Carolina Panthers who had to trade Robbie Anderson because he was bitching about the team starting fights on the sideline. Carolina Panthers who lost a game because DJ Moore took his helmet off in the end zone on a touchdown celebration. All those things happened this year, by the way, to the Carolina Panthers. All true. Also starting the year 0-3. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady, has to beat an interim coach and the quarterback that, when he was in New England, saw ghosts. Sam Darnold will play Tom Brady this weekend in the ultimate revenge game. The Carolina Panthers upset the Detroit Lions this past weekend, running for over 250 yards in the first half, over 300 yards for the game. Dante Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, Sam Darnold had a rushing touchdown. The Panthers have been pesky all year. If the Panthers win this weekend, they will be 7-9. The Bucs will be 7-9. The Panthers will be 2-0 head-to-head against said Bucs. If the Panthers win their last game of the season, which I believe is against New Orleans, they will win the NFC South with an interim coach and with all of that baggage. Imagine how embarrassing that would be for Tom Brady to be beaten out for a playoff spot by the likes of that. I don't know what's going to happen. I still got to think about the game this weekend. We'll preview games this weekend as the week goes on. But the fact that Tom Brady is in this position is sad to me. I'm sure he wants to keep playing, but nobody is going to fear this Bucs team if they get to the playoffs. And I guess the biggest thing is I don't know how many teams you fear in the NFC in the playoffs. You're not going to fear any wildcard team that gets in. You're not going to fear the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know if you fear the Minnesota Vikings. The Bucs are another team that has Byron Leftwich as offensive coordinator, who likely thought, okay, I didn't get a head coaching job last year. I'll get one this. There's no way he's going to get a head coaching job. It's got nothing to do with the fact that he's black and they give it to white guys. It's the fact that his offense has looked so pathetic this season, so pedestrian, so predictable, that who would want to sign him up to create an offense for your team? Tom Brady might have hated Bruce Arians. I think he's starting to hate Byron Leftwich because this offense is doing nothing. Doesn't help that Tom Brady can't complete a pass. Doesn't help that Tom Brady doesn't stay in the pocket anymore and he gives up and plays too easy because he doesn't want to take a hit. Watch the film, you'll see it. The Buccaneers will likely win their division and make the playoffs, but it will not because of their merit. They'll make the playoffs because if you win your division, you make the playoffs. But what a story that would be if Carolina could find their way in after all of what happened. Matt Rule's already got a new job at the University of Nebraska. That team that he built might get into the playoffs with Steve Wilks. And I'll tell you who isn't rooting for Steve Wilks this weekend. That would be Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper. You know why? If Carolina makes the playoffs if they make the playoffs this year, if they beat Panthers this weekend and they win their final game, they're in. He will not be rooting for that scenario because then he might have to extend Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks has done enough to warrant keeping the job. He got this roster to the playoffs. I mean, David Tepper's already despondent upon repair because this team that has no business winning are winning games, and his draft position continues to fall. They did not get a quarterback last year, and they may just not get another one again. The likes of Bryce Young and Will Levis might be off the board before Carolina can pick, so you might have another season of just Sam Darnold and who knows what else is coming down the corner at quarterback for this team. Jimmy Garoppolo, potentially. But the Panthers and Steve Wilks continue to fight forward and continue to play solid football. Tom Brady does not. He needs that defense to play really well this weekend and stop the run. Because I don't think he wants his season to end in the first weekend of January. But if it doesn't, I think it will be. Because he'll be sitting out, missing the playoffs, not making a wild card spot. And it's rare that Tom Brady does not make the playoffs. And with all the hype that the Bucs had going into the season, it would be one of the biggest failures of a season in NFL history. Cardinals, we'll talk about them another day. There's the bad team. Green Bay defeated the Miami Dolphins, a game I went to on Sunday. A game that Green Bay won, but if I look at the game in totality, it was a game that Miami lost more than Green Bay won. Miami had a 20-13 lead to start the second half. Green Bay started the second half with an opening drive touchdown that took over half the clock. It was over a 7-minute drive. But you still have a tie ball game. Miami had a great first half offensively. Jalen Waddle broke off an 85-yard touchdown. Tyreek Hill was all over the field. Tua was very accurate, played well. Raheem Mostert. Offensively, the Dolphins were on fuego. Only problem was they had fumbled the ball late in the half. A few miscues. Then we get to the fourth quarter. You're in a tie game. It's a dogfight. And Tua throws 3 fourth-quarter interceptions, which is hard to fathom, that lead to 2 field goals for the Green Bay Packers. The Miami defense, which is ranked bottom 10 in the NFL, had a surprisingly decent day. The first Green Bay possession, they had a kick return to the 9-yard line of Miami that was kept to a field goal. 2 drives off interceptions that started inside the old Miami 20 that were only field goals. So the defense did their job. Miami turned the ball over 4 times. It led to 9 points. That is decent work. That isn't horrible. You could get a turnover off that, but you can live with that. They also intercepted Aaron Rodgers once. Tua was horrible. All 3 interceptions were his fault, and all 3 of them were simplistic plays that just he made a poor read. He was looking for Tyreek Hill on the first one, and Jair Alexander stepped up, made the pick, and he returned it a little ways. The second one, he's kind of breaking out. He's looking for something. He's looking for Waddle. He's looking for Tyreek. Makes a panic throw. He underthrows him. It's intercepted by Green Bay. And then after Miami gets a stop, they get the ball back. They have a 2-minute drive with no timeouts. It was still tons of time in football to go win the game. And he throws an interception on his second pass of the drive, ending the game. This was a Tua game where if you were a Tua denier, if you were a guy that just doesn't think he's a good quarterback, you have a lot of energy today. You look at that and say, you know, Tua isn't that good. He's not a great quarterback. He's got a noodle arm. He's weak. What I would say about this is this was chickens coming home to roost, because if you watch Dolphins football, if you just even watch highlights, 2 to 3 times a game normally, Tua throws an interception that the defense drops. Happens 2 to 3 times every game where somehow the defense doesn't come up with it. And just on Sunday, Green Bay caught the ball. Their secondary caught the football, and they made them pay. That's ultimately what happened. This should happen more, but for some reason the defense never comes up with the ball. Tua is a good quarterback, not a great one. And that can be a problem in the NFL, big problem in the AFC, where you look at it and you have Mahomes, you have Josh Allen, you have Joe Burrow, you have Justin Herbert, you have Lamar Jackson. I just named 5 quarterbacks before I get to Tua Tagovailoa. And would he be next? Potentially. I guess. When you look at the rest of it, you got the rest of your division, quarterbacks there with Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. You're not going to pick any of them. Is Tua better than Trevor Lawrence? I would take Trevor Lawrence over Tua Tagovailoa. I'm taking the Prince every day of the week with that hair and just the way he plays the game. Not as brittle as Tua. I think he's got a better feel for the game. I'm taking the Prince. Tannehill, again, he's a beat up. He's an older guy. I'm not taking Tannehill. I'm not taking a Houston Texans quarterback. Kenny Pickett, too early of returns. We haven't seen enough football from him to justify taking Kenny Pickett over Tua. Deshaun Watson, I'm not taking that piece of shit. But you're looking at the AFC, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that you're going to have to beat. Now, again, one game does not define a career. But what I will say was this was a huge game and a huge opportunity for Miami. Through the week, Jets lose on Thursday night. New England loses Saturday afternoon to Cincinnati. You had, what else happened? The Jets, New England, Vegas. Everybody you needed to lose was losing. And you had an opportunity to improve to 9-6 and have a big separation over everybody else. But then you lay an egg in the biggest fourth quarter of your season. And this wasn't a game where it was your defense's fault. It was a game where just Tua had poor decisions, he had bad reads, and it cost you. So now you fall to 8-7, and below you have the Steelers at 7-8, who refuse to quit because they're coached by Mike Tomlin, who's a man's man. You have the Jets at 7-8, who, guess what? The Jets beat you head-to-head, meaning they have a tiebreaker over you. You have 7-8 New England, who you play this coming Sunday in a massively important game, basically a playoff game this coming weekend. So now you've kept all these teams still in the mix. These teams are still alive. These teams still have life because you threw away a fourth quarter. You threw away a halftime lead, and the Miami Dolphins scored 0 points in the second half of Sunday's game. You score 0 points in a half, you deserve to lose. Aaron Rodgers did not play great. I watched him live. He had those plays where you look at Aaron Rodgers and go, oh my God. He threw an incredible pass to Alan Lazard down the sideline. He threw an incredible one to Mercedes Lewis, my guy, the great tight end, down the sideline as well. He had a few moments where you go like, wow, that was Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron had a bad game too. He threw a bad interception in the end zone. He made poor decisions. He was late a few times. But they had enough. They had enough to get by. For the Miami team, this is put up or shut up this weekend. Again, New England, you have to go to New England on New Year's Day and win a really important game. In the cold temperatures, in that hostile crowd, you've owned New England, but that doesn't mean you'll beat them this time. New England's defense is great. Josh Uche, Matthew Judon can sack the quarterback like any tandem in the NFL. Their secondary, Cincinnati had 3 points in the second half against New England this past weekend. That's it. They didn't give up much. They played incredibly hard. And they will against Tua as well. Not to mention the offensive line for Miami is also battered. They're not exactly healthy right now, so that creates a problem and good matchups for the Patriots. And somehow yesterday it comes out, now Tua is in concussion protocol. He played the entire game. And I watched the whole thing. He played every snap, and now he's in concussion protocol because he's showing concussion-like symptoms. Now, my dad asked me, what are the Dolphins going to do? And I said, the good thing for the Dolphins is that they don't have any money locked up in Tua. That he's playing, this is his third season of his NFL career. He can play him one more year, then you have to decide on his fifth-year option. You can decline his fifth-year option at the start of next year if you want to. Vegas did it with Josh Jacobs. You see teams do it. Giants did it with Daniel Jones. He might earn himself a new contract. That doesn't mean you still decline his fifth year, and he had to earn it. Tua's concussed twice this year. He has concussion-like symptoms again. You don't want to admit that you made a mistake with the quarterback position. But if you could go back, you would have taken Justin Herbert over Tua. Absolutely. I think 90% of draft prognosticators thought you would have took Justin Herbert over Tua I mean, the old head coach wanted Tom Brady over Tua. They wanted Deshaun Watson over. They've wanted many quarterbacks before they got Tua. Do I think it's possible that Tom Brady could be, after all of what happened, where I think he wanted to be a Dolphin, he'll be a free agent? Do I think that their owner, Stephen Ross, is so desperate to win because he's old and he knows his football mortality is coming? Do I think he's desperate enough to sign Tom Brady this upcoming offseason? Absolutely. He's still going to have Tyreek Hill under contract. You still have Jalen Waddle under his rookie deal. You'll have one of the best tandem wide receiver combos in the NFL. Now, I'll put it this way. I expect the Dolphins to win this weekend against the Patriots because they're a better team than New England Patriots. Tua's a better quarterback than Mac Jones. But could they move off Tua as soon as this offseason? Absolutely. It's a fast-moving world in the NFL. When you are not putting up anything, they will get rid of you. When you underperform with a good team, management is going to see that and try to rectify that problem. Tua is a solid player. He could be a Dolphin for a long time, but I just see a lot of warning signs for me. I don't think Tom Brady's going to end up in San Francisco because they have too many quarterbacks there. With Brock Purdy hanging around, with Trey Lance still under rookie contract, Jimmy G, I think there's just too many roadblocks. I don't think they'll want Tom Brady at 46 to come in and break that up. Would Miami take a chance on a 46-year-old who stunk it up in 2022? Yeah. Yeah, because they're desperate for something. They're desperate for relevance. They're desperate to be a contender, to be among the best. I think it'd be really hard for Tom Brady to win a Super Bowl in the AFC with all the great quarterbacks that I've already pointed out. But he might be so confident and cocky enough that he might be able to do it at 46, which all the power to him. But it's going to be tricky. I just mentioned Patriots and Jets, who are still in the mix to make the playoffs. The Patriots offensively were so bad this week. They had a pick six, which kept them in it. They had a block punt that kept them in the game. But that offense with Mac Jones, just nothing. Mac Jones had another dirty play where he threw a pick six himself. He did a dirty, cheap move where he stopped up and tried to take a guy's leg out. Here's my advice to Mac Jones. Quit doing that, because if I'm a defensive player, I'll take a flag just to prove a point. Mac Jones is proving to be a dirty player. He's doing it all the time. He takes these cheap shots on defensive linemen. And look out, Mac. Because I don't think your offensive line likes you all that much. Because all you do is bitch and complain. It's never your fault. When you throw a pick six, it's never your fault. But anyway. And for the Jets, it was announced yesterday, Mike White is back from his rib injuries. Zach Wilson, who was benched Thursday night for Chris Streveler, the CFL quarterback. Zach Wilson will be inactive this weekend. Joe Flacco is back to being the second-string quarterback. And Mike White will start this for the final two games of the regular season as the Jets try to make the playoffs. Josh Allen is the only secure quarterback in this division going into the offseason for me. You could say Mac Jones, but I don't. I think he could ask for a trade. I think they might be sick of him. If New England makes a major change where maybe Belichick isn't coaching there anymore, or if he's not making personnel decisions, maybe that the group doesn't want Mac Jones in. But Zach Wilson is going to be inactive for the final 6 games. He's the second overall pick in the draft. This was a flop. This was a mistake. And this is where you just move off it. This is where you just move off it. You take your loss. And because you can't make the guy inactive the final 2 games of the season, then bring him back next season like everything's hunky-dory. Robert Saleh is still going to be the coach. I think Mike LaFleur will likely still be the offensive coordinator. I just think they'll have a different quarterback. To me, Zach Wilson's a lock, even though he's only through his second season. I don't see how with that team, I don't see how they bring him back. I think they hate him in New York. Not as much as they hate Russell Wilson in Denver, but they hate him a lot. Before we get to Dallas, Philly, let's get to Denver. Let's ride, country. The Denver Broncos lost on Christmas Day. And I want to get this score right. And the score will be a high score, but it still won't be really tell you the truth of the game because of how pathetic they were. So the Los Angeles Rams beat the Denver Broncos 51-14 on Christmas Day. Russell Wilson threw another 3 interceptions, 2 interceptions in his first 3 passes. And they just got fully shellacked by the Los Angeles Rams, who don't have Aaron Donald, don't have Matthew Stafford, don't have Cooper Kupp, don't have Van Jefferson, don't have they got Baker Mayfield at quarterback. He was in Carolina 2 weeks ago. And they beat them 51-14. Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions and was benched for Brett Rippon in the fourth quarter. And it's a shellacking. Broncos have been a joke all year. They've been a just pathetic excuse of a team. Russell Wilson with his religious crap on Twitter, thanking God and doing all this. I have no problem with, again, I love religion. I have no problem with people that practice it. I think it comes off as counterfeit when you're saying how grateful you are to God after you just got shellacked 51-14. You're grateful for that ass whooping? Maybe pray some more. That's just a thought for the day. But they get their ass kicked 51-14, and you see on the sideline Russell Wilson and Brett Rippon are getting into confrontation with their offensive linemen. Guys are getting in each other's faces. It's not a pretty sight. And then as I'm getting on the bird yesterday to fly home, I see that the Denver Broncos have fired Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach after just 15 games of work. Nathaniel Hackett did not last a season. One of 6 coaches in NFL history to not at least coach one season. He did not last the whole year. A really pathetic group. And technically, Urban Meyer was not fired. He was laid off, I guess. That didn't count. He wasn't included in the group. But he should be. He's another one that didn't survive a year. So, Nathaniel Hackett out after 1 year. And here's my thought. Denver fired Nathaniel Hackett yesterday instead of 2 weeks from now, which they would have done anyway, on Black Monday after the last weekend of the season, after the last Sunday of the season, before the playoffs. Denver would have fired Nathaniel Hackett. Like teams will. We'll try to surmise that in the coming weeks. But they did it yesterday, opposed to 2 weeks from now, because, in my mind, because Nathaniel Hackett benched Russell Wilson. To me, this was the Denver Broncos' new ownership group, which is the Walton family who own Walmart. They're billionaires, lots of money. They fired the coach because they need the coach, they need the team to buy into Russell Wilson because they don't have a choice. They would love to do to Russell Wilson what they did to Nate Hackett, to say hasta luego, see you later, sayonara, whatever kind of expression you want to use, get the hell out of here. But they signed Russell Wilson to a 5-year extension with over $180 million in guaranteed money, $230 potentially. Not all of that fully guaranteed, but a lot of it fully guaranteed. So they're stuck with him. They need to try to revive this guy's career, even though, as I pointed out before the season, the Denver Broncos he was a quarterback that was failing in Seattle. His last 2 years there, he was not the same quarterback. He came to Denver, and he's been arguably one of the worst players in the NFL this year. But you signed a crap piece. It's like you went and you bought an art painting, right? And you think it's real. You got this signature of authenticity, you hang it on the wall. But then you have somebody that has any kind of sense. They come to your place, they look at it for a second, they realize there's like this is scrub, it's not shaded in correctly, it's a counterfeit, it's a fraud. That's what Denver got. That's my art analogy as I try to get cultured on you here on this Tuesday morning, even though art's not something I really dabble in. They bought a piece of crap painting. They bought a painting that they thought was going to be worth millions. It's not worth 5 cents. It's not worth 5 cents. But their 5-cent painting now has to be sold as a Picasso because they bought it for the Picasso price. They need to tell people, oh, this is a Picasso. This is fantastic. This is one of his last pieces, one of his favorite, whatever you have to tell people, the lie that you have to tell people so that they drill it into their head and they buy it. That's what you have to do because you're stuck with the crap that you got. And that's, let's ride Russell Wilson. They fired the coach because he benched the quarterback, period. 51-14 loss. Yeah, that's embarrassing. But they've been getting beat down all year long. They've been embarrassing since week 1. Nathaniel Hackett. And guess who the new interim head coach is? The guy he hired to help him with clock management, Nathaniel Hackett, after the week 1 blunder. That's the new head coach for the last 2 weeks of the season. It was reported over the weekend that Sean Payton wants to return to coaching and he wants Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator. He's putting together a staff. I think the Denver Broncos will do anything they can to get Sean Payton to come to Denver. But I'm going to advise Sean Payton. I don't think I need to advise him. I think Sean Payton's a smart guy. Don't. Do not go to Denver. Russell Wilson is a depreciating asset. The team has no draft capital. Seattle has the pick. It's the 3rd pick in the draft. You traded away everything to get Russell Wilson. You have no salary cap. Wait. If you have to work at Fox for another year before a job that you really like opens, wait. Or maybe just wait. Sit there and have your agent say that you're interested in a job. Maybe it's Denver. Maybe it's Carolina. Who knows? Put that out there that your agent will leak it to a source that Sean Payton's interested in this job. And maybe the Chargers, who have clinched the playoff spot, but maybe they'll bounce out early, and their ownership will look at it and say, well, we like Brandon Staley, but 1 playoff appearance in 3 years? 1 and done with Justin Herbert? We need more than this. Maybe they'll fire Brandon Staley. Maybe not for cause, but they'll just fire him and say, you know what, we just want another option. And they'll be so desperate to bring in Sean Payton because they don't want another team to get him that he'll get the job he actually wants. Because I think Sean Payton wants to coach the Chargers, and I think he wants to coach Justin Herbert. Just because a team makes the playoffs doesn't mean they won't make a coaching change. And quite honestly, if I'm Sean Payton, I'd rather take the Carolina job than take the Denver one. Yeah, they don't have a quarterback on the roster right now, but I'll take my chances on whoever else is coming in via draft, free agency, USFL, XFL. I don't care what it is. I don't want Russell Wilson with that money as my quarterback. Give me anyone. Sure, Brett Favre needs the money. He's probably done stealing from people. Might be in jail by then, but you could probably still sign. He'd probably come out of retirement and play. Maybe Tom Brady will go down to Carolina. Him and Sean Payton team up for 1 year down in Carolina, stay in the NFC South. Options. But Sean Payton, you're smart. I don't need to tell you this. Don't go to Denver. Don't go. Arguably the best game of the weekend was Dallas and Philadelphia on Saturday afternoon. Instant classic and just a thoroughly entertaining game, back and forth, key defensive plays by both teams. And, to me, one of the best games of Dak Prescott's career. He had a pick 6 on his first drive, but he overcame it. The Dallas Cowboys came back from had two 10-point comebacks in the game. CeeDee Lamb had, I think, his best game. He was so efficient. He played fantastic in the game. Dallas, to me, is a scary team in the NFC. I thought this all year. It's all on Dak. And it's not all on Dak to be the offense, but it's just on Dak to be efficient. Dallas still needs to have a formula of run the football, pass. It needs to be a good balance. It cannot be 30-10. They're not the Kansas City Chiefs. But when Tony Pollard and Zeke are getting the ball, you have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, T.Y. Hilton when you sprinkle them in, Dalton Schultz. You can beat anybody. Dallas is going to finish with a really good record. They might be 13-4. They got Titans and Washington to finish the season. I think they win both of those games. Their defense has been leaking as of late. They've given up almost 40 points in back-to-back weeks. The pass rush isn't what it used to be. What I will say, however, is their last two games were against Jacksonville and against the Eagles. Two really good offensive lines. Brandon Scherf, Cam Robinson, even though Jacksonville lost two offensive linemen for the season announced this week, including Cam Robinson, their longtime left tackle. But, Philly has the best offensive line in football. It's tough to beat them. Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Mailata. But for Dallas, you've beaten Philadelphia. And for both these teams, it's interesting because Philly beat Dallas in week 5, and Cooper Rush was the quarterback. And now Dallas beats Philadelphia in week 16, and Gardner Minshew was the quarterback, not Jalen Hurts. Even though I will add, I think Minshew mania was sparked up again because I thought Gardner Minshew played fantastic in the game. Yeah, he had some plays you want to have back. But, they fumbled twice. He can't help that. He put them in a position to win the game late. Dallas got some pressure. Their secondary held up on the last couple of plays, and Dallas holds on to win the game. For Philadelphia, a couple worries. Their secondary needs to be healthy. They're a different team when C.J. Gardner-Johnson is back there playing free safety because he can help cover. He helps every corner. Darius Slay had a tough game on Sunday. CeeDee Lamb carved him up. CeeDee Lamb took his lunch money away. It was a no contest for CeeDee Lamb against Darius Slay. Darius Slay is a really good corner. I think he'll bounce back. He's big play Slay for a reason. Didn't have his day. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson being back there is so important for this team just to make plays, just to help each corner. They also lost Avonte Maddox early in the game, so health is paramount, obviously. And then we get to Lane Johnson, who has an abdominal tear. He's going to miss the rest of the regular season. They need to hope he's healthy because Lane Johnson is one of the best right tackles in football. As they mentioned on the broadcast Saturday, he hasn't allowed a sack in almost 2 years. He never gets holding. He's a quasi Hall of Famer. He's been that good. I still think Philly's a very good team. I think Dallas is a very good team. But to me, the best team in the NFC is the San Francisco Giants. Sorry, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are still the best team in the NFC to me. Even with Brock Purdy. The way their defense plays, George Kittle has found himself again. He's got 5 touchdowns in 2 games. Purdy's not turning the ball over. They're efficient. They've won 8 in a row. They just all kinds of momentum down there. I love what they're doing in San Francisco. But to me, just their defense alone and the way they play offense, Deebo Samuel will be back come playoff time. That team is the most scary team in the playoffs because they have so much balance. And they put it all together. Dallas can have a great defense. But do they put it together in the same week that their offense starts to wake up? Does Kellen Moore say, fuck you to the run game and let's Dak throw it 45 times and you lose the game? I've seen that happen before. I could see it happen again. But Philly loses a game. They're now 13-2. They play the Saints next weekend, who are still in the race in the NFC South, so that'll mean something to the Saints. The Philly hasn't clinched the number one spot yet. If they win this week, they will clinch the number one seed in the NFC. Then they can rest up Lane Johnson. They can rest up Avonte Maddox. Rest Jalen Hurts the last game of the regular season likely, even though that'll keep him out for a number of weeks before the playoffs. But getting the number one seed for these Eagles is paramount. You get home field. You have to have San Francisco come to the elements. You have Dallas come to the elements. It's not a dome game. Minnesota has to go outside. They play in a dome. But what I will say is I think the two injuries of the weekend that are most paramount. Philly, Lane Johnson, they need to hope he's okay. And Cincinnati lost Lyle Collins, their great right tackle for the season. He tore his MCL and his ACL. He got signed by the Dallas Cowboys in free agency. And he was having a really good season for them. Cincinnati's offensive line had been really recovered. But after he left the game, they allowed 3 sacks to New England. That's not lost on me, is that you're going to have a backup in that position, and it's going to hurt Cincinnati's chances of getting to another Super Bowl. Yesterday, I saw, and this I'm going to give full credit, it was on Good Morning Football, Peter Schrager, who works for the NFL Network and also works for Fox, pitched to Andrew Whitworth, who works for Amazon, former left tackle, Super Bowl champion last year with the Rams. He said, go work Thursday, your final game of the year, with Amazon. So get that contract out of the way, and then sign with Cincinnati for the playoff run. You could flip him over. Maybe he's used to playing left tackle. Jonah Williams can flip over, play right tackle, whatever you have to do to make him more comfortable. But I think that's a smart idea. Andrew Whitworth, he can still play. He started his career with Cincinnati, then went to the Rams. Now go help Cincinnati, the team you started with, win a Super Bowl. It's a massive loss. That he's out for the year. Lane Johnson, it sounds like he is not done for the season. So it's a better situation for the Eagles. Not to mention the Eagles could have a bye. Cincinnati is going to have to play in the wild card round against somebody. Right now, they're the 3rd seed. They would play, if the season ended today, they would play the Chargers. It's not an easy game. Pass rushers for the Chargers are decent. They can get to the quarterback. So those 2 injuries can define a season. You don't think about the offensive line until you see the injury. I saw Lyle Collins go down in the 3rd quarter, and the game changed, and New England almost pulled off the upset, in part because of that. But it's interesting down the stretch here. I mean, the NFC, Green Bay's still alive in that wild card chase. Detroit lost. I mean, everybody that had to lose, had to lose did. Washington lost. The Giants lost. Detroit lost. Green Bay's now at 7-8. They're lurking. They finished the season again at home to Minnesota and home to Detroit. The final 2 weeks of the season. They went out. They likely get in. Washington finishes their season. I believe, if I know Washington, they're on a losing streak right now. They're deciding on who's going to be the quarterback this week. Washington finishes with the Browns at home this weekend, and they finish against the Cowboys. Giants got the Colts this Sunday. I think the Giants are going to win this Sunday, clinch a playoff spot. So it's going to come down to that last position to me, because the 5th spot's locked up with the Cowboys. So it's either going to be the Washington football team, Green Bay, Seattle's also in the mix because they're at 7-8. Seattle's at 7-8 as well. If I look at the conference in the NFC, so currently you have Washington at 7-1, Seattle at 7-8, Detroit at 7-8, Green Bay at 7-8, Carolina 6-9. So Seattle's got the Jets, and then they have the Rams. That's a decent schedule. The Jets is a tough game for sure. And, Seattle's lost 6 of their last 7, so you need to find a way to have some momentum. But if you can beat the Jets this weekend, I like their chances. Washington, they could finish 8-1 because they could definitely beat Cleveland, who are out of playoff contention, nothing to play for. But who do the Cowboys dress before that wild card game? Lots to decide here. Detroit, they finish. Detroit finishes with the Bears, and then they play Green Bay the final week of their season. So lots to figure out here. Lots to decide. Still lots of things to figure out. The NBA and the NHL return tonight as well. Tonight's games in the NHL, you got Capitals Rangers, which has become a big game as the Caps. Congratulations to the grade 8, Alex Ovechkin. Got to 802 goals, past Gordie Howe, now second all-time in goals scored in NHL history. You got Penguins Islanders. That Metro is an interesting division. Every game is big. Wild Jets coming off the breaks. Oilers Flames. Flames have won 4 in a row, but they need to beat a good team before I really give them any kind of credit after going through California. So, again, I'll be at the game this afternoon. We'll be back tomorrow. Seamus might be in studio. We'll figure that one out tomorrow. But tomorrow on the podcast, we'll update you on all the games. We'll talk about the other NHL and NBA stories and so much more. So it was great to be back. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Talk to you tomorrow. This has been To The Point.